Hello and welcome to the Mind Map. Today we're going to be going over How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. Now, Dale Carnegie is the best-selling author of How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I just did a mind map on this channel. But this book is going to be more for those of us who deal with worry, deal with anxiety around a number of different things. And Dale really brings his no-nonsense kind of practical writing style to these specific topics. And I think if you deal with any of those things, be it worry, anxiety, any of those things, this book is going to be perfect for you. Now let's get into a quick introduction. First, I want to talk about Dale Carnegie himself in case you didn't watch my previous video. But he's an American writer. He developed courses in self-improvement, salesmanship, public speaking, and many other life skills. He was born in poverty on a farm in Missouri and became a massively successful writer and teacher. So he's got quite an amazing story himself of how he overcame some hard obstacles. His books mostly circle around how changing ourselves can help us change others, and how to stop worrying and start living is really, again, at the core of it is all about us and how we can work to change ourselves, work to improve ourselves. So with that, let's move into how to stop worrying and start living. The first quote that I pulled from the book to serve as a good overview for you is that no one living has enough emotion and vigor to fight the inevitable, and at the same time, enough left over to create a new life. Choose one or the other. You can either bend with the inevitable sleet storm of life, or you can resist them and break. So really, that's what we're talking about today. You can either bend with the inevitable sleet storm. So you can either bend with the worry, bend with the anxiety, bend with the things that are happening to you in your life, or you can resist them. And that's what often leads to people breaking down because of anxiety, because of worry, because of any of those things. Likely, you've been exposed to How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is Dale's best-selling book. This book is the same but different. Dale's writing style is very practical and action-oriented. And really, this book is no different than How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's all about practical advice. Inside the book, we're going to be talking about simple, practical, but not easy things that you can do if you have too much worry in your life. This book is filled with amazing and timeless advice. Obviously, I couldn't fit it all into the mind map, so I recommend that you pick it up if you enjoy this video and check the rest of the book out. Now, we're going to start off with a yellow point here. I have 2 yellow points in the video, and these are what I think are the 2 main takeaways from the book. So stay tuned and make sure that you watch all the way to the second one, which is Too Busy for You. But first, let's start with fears and worries. 70% of all patients who come to physicians could cure themselves if they got rid of their fears and worries. So this is really the why. Why should we stop worrying? Why should we start living? Why should we stop paying so much attention to our worries and our fears? And the real reason is because worries and fears are killers. Inside the book, there are many quotes from doctors talking about what worry might do to you. This is probably written before the day and age when we knew how bad it really was for our health. Even so, the doctors are talking about how worry and fear would basically eat you alive, hacking years off your life and leaving you with little energy inside those years. Not knowing Carnegie's writing, I don't think it's a scare tactic per se, but instead, I think he's trying to portray how important it is for you to get rid of your worry and fear. And he talked about how cultivating a burning desire and how to win friends and influence people, and I believe that this is his way of helping you find a burning desire. Putting more years onto your life and more energy into those years is what getting rid of or learning to deal with fears and worries is going to do for you. Now let's move into our first tip of how to deal with some of those worries and fears. I called it Till the Sun Goes Down, and the quote goes like this. So let's be content to live the only time we can possibly live, from now until bedtime. Anyone can carry his burden, however hard, from now until nightfall, wrote Robert Louis Stevenson. Anyone can do his work, however hard, for one day. Anyone can live sweetly, patiently, lovingly, purely, until the sun goes down. And this is all that life really means. And to me, this quote right here is really about the amazing effect of willpower. Humans have almost complete control over our actions, at least in the short term, even though sometimes it can feel like we don't. If we have enough willpower, we can endure almost anything, especially if we don't focus on the thing and we have to endure it over the long term, right? If we focus on just until the sun goes down. Willpower is this amazing thing where it's basically just reset overnight. When we go to bed, we wake up feeling rested and refreshed and ready to take on a new day. This is something that a couple of coaching clients have actually come to me about is, hey, you know what? First thing in the morning, I wake up, I meditate, I have a green shake, I get my workout in, I go to work, I work all day, and then I come home and I start to fall into some negative habits. Why is this happening? And how can I get myself to not do this? So why during the day do we so often focus on how long our suffering will go on for, instead of focusing, I just have to do this until nightfall and then it'll be easier again the next day? Focusing on that erodes our willpower quicker than anything else. So focusing on how long we're going to have to keep doing this job for, how long we're going to have to keep exercising for, how long we're going to have to keep meditating for. That's not what we want to focus on. Here's an example. Right now I'm working on a new book on mind mapping. There is so much information out there about mind mapping, but I'm determined to read all that there is. Plus, I'll have to be creative and add new information into the genre if the book is going to be worth anything. This is all going to take a really long time, like months and months for me to create this. If I focused on that every day, only 3 more months until I'm finished, I would probably never finish the book. Instead, I focus on the day, and I try to get excited about it, because that'll make my willpower, make me need less willpower in order to be able to accomplish it. So I focus on, what can I create today? What can I create right now? What can I learn today? And those questions are more important and empowering than how much longer until it's done will ever be. So try to use the positive effects of being motivated by the long term with limiting the downside. Try not to focus on how long it's going to take. Try to focus on what you'll get when you get there, and try to really spend most of your energy focusing on what you can do today to move towards it. The next point that I pulled out was decision action. Experience has proved to me, time after time, the enormous value of arriving at a decision. It is the failure to arrive at a fixed purpose, the inability to stop going around and around in maddening circles that drives men to nervous breakdowns and living hells. And if you've ever had ruminating thoughts where you keep thinking about the same thing over and over and over again, you know that really is a living hell. I find that 50% of my worries vanishes once I arrive at a clear, definite decision. And another 40% usually vanishes once I start to carry out that decision. So I banish 90% of my worries by taking these 4 steps. Number 1, writing down precisely what I'm worried about. Number 2, writing down what I can do about it. Number 3, deciding what to do. And then number 4, start immediately to carry out that decision. And to me, this is just another point on action biased. How many of the books we've done on this channel have an entire section about just action biased, about doing things before you spend too much time thinking about it? You think it might be important if it's in this many self-development books. Time for a little story. One of my coaching clients came to me after our week apart, absolutely stressed out and worried. When I asked what was wrong, she explained that she just couldn't decide what to do next. In effect, she was really just paralyzed by making this decision. And because of that, she didn't end up getting any work done that week at all, and felt fearful that her projects were going to fail because of it. Which, honestly, it just was not possible. But worry and fear will do weird things to the mind. Her projects couldn't possibly have failed. She lost 1 week, but it wasn't really that big a deal. So what did we do? Exactly what Dale tells us to do here. Write down what you're worried about, specifically this decision. She couldn't decide what to do next in her project, specifically. And then say, what could you possibly do about that? Probably just take the next step. Decide on one thing and then do it. Decide on it and take action. That's what she did the next week, and I'm looking forward to our check-in, because this was actually just a couple of days ago. Looking forward to our check-in to see how action has affected her life, and I'll report back hopefully in the next mind map about how she was able to take action. The next point is about spilt milk, and we've all heard this one before. Some readers are going to snort at the idea of making so much over a hackneyed proverb, like don't cry over spilled milk. I know it's trite, commonplace, and a platitude. Continues on, he says, I know that you've heard it 1,000 times, but I also know that these hackneyed proverbs contain the very existence of the distilled wisdom of all ages. This is such an interesting point. They have come out of the fiery existence of the human race and have been handed down through countless generations. If we were to read everything that has been ever written about worry by the great scholars of all time, you would never read anything more basic or more profound than such a hackneyed proverbs as don't cross your bridges until you come to them, or don't cry over spilled milk. If we only apply these two proverbs instead of snorting at them, we wouldn't need to read this book at all. In fact, if we applied most of the old proverbs, we would probably lead almost perfect lives. However, knowledge isn't power until it's applied. And the purpose of this book is to remind you of what you already know and to kick you in the shins and inspire you to do something about applying it. Isn't that so true about almost all information? How almost all information is just a reiteration of some of these old proverbs that people have already come up with. And that goes doubly for these mind maps. Really what I'm doing is just a reapplication, a kicking in the shins for those of you that need to know some of the information that's coming out of this book. I try to help you apply it in your life. Knowledge isn't power until it's applied. This quote is probably the most profound in the entire book. Dale is basically saying that most of life has already been figured out. In fact, it's been figured out and distilled so well that these hackneyed proverbs we already know. But how many of them are we really applying? When was the last time something happened to you that was devastating? Maybe a business deal fell through, you didn't get a certain job, or even had a car breakdown. Did you get busy fixing the problem or get busy commiserating? Try out this philosophy. One day I looked back on my life and realized that given enough time, some of the worst things that ever happened to me were really the best things that ever happened to me. It's a weird way that life teaches us lessons. Sometimes it has to kick us in the shins to let us know. But because of that, I have this new philosophy. When something happens that I would normally be bummed out about, I ask myself, given enough time, what will this teach me? And look for a way to learn immediately, learn in the moment, without having to be kicked in the shins again, because who wants to be kicked in the shins 100 times? So don't cry over spilled milk and these other kind of hackneyed proverbs, which I hadn't heard the word hackneyed ever before, but apparently it was something that they used quite a lot back in the day. Rest often. Psychiatrists declare that most of our fatigue derives from our mental and emotional attitudes. Very interesting. What kinds of emotional factors tire the sedentary or sitting worker? Joy, contentment? No, never. Boredom, resentment, and feeling of not being appreciated, a feeling of futility, hurry, worry, and anxiety. Those are the emotional factors that exhaust the sitting worker, make him susceptible to colds, reduce his output, and send him home with a nervous headache. Yes, we get tired because our emotions produce nervous tensions in the body. So to prevent fatigue and worry, the first rule is rest often and rest before you get tired. Now, this is very interesting because you can be tired without really feeling tired. And this one really spoke to me personally. I often don't take enough rest. At least I haven't in the past. And I think it's a simple mental trick I have that I play on myself. I'm trying to work on this as much as I possibly can. I don't think of myself as tired when I've had a long day. Instead, I'll think of myself as lazy. I didn't work physically like some of my friends for 10 hours. Instead, I sat or stood at my desk for 8 hours. And because of this, I don't allow myself to take enough rest. And as Dale says here in the book, the mental part of work is just as tiring, even when you love what you do. So to prevent fatigue, we must rest before we feel like we need it, letting sleeps, long walks, and taking naps a priority. Inside the book, he's got a ton of examples from very successful people on how they used rest, but it's going to be different for each of us. So I recommend that you really take a look. Am I thinking myself as, I need some rest, or am I thinking myself as lazy? And if you're thinking of yourself as lazy, I invite you to work on the same thing that I'm going to try and work on. Instead of thinking of myself as lazy, think about how even sitting at a desk and doing mental work can be very tiring, and that I deserve rest. Now, our next kind of highlighted point here, that I think is the second most important point in the entire book, is too busy for you. And this is something that I came across quite a long time ago, and I use it still every day. I realize now that people are not thinking about you and me, or caring about what is said about us. They are thinking about themselves, before breakfast, after breakfast, and right on until 10 minutes past midnight. They would be 1,000 times more concerned about a slight headache of their own than they would about the news of of your death or mine. Wow. People are too busy thinking and worrying about themselves to worry about us. Such a great point, such an important point for us to know. Actually, it's similar. Again, I said I came to this conclusion. I think Tim Ferriss talked about this before, and that's who I learned it from. Similar to how I cured myself of social anxiety while opening up my gym. Here's the story. I live in a small town where people who do things outside of the norm are weird, and that was causing me quite a lot of social anxiety when I was starting up my gym. I got over that feeling by simply reminding myself every time I felt social anxiety that people really weren't worried about me. They weren't thinking about me that much at all. They've got so much stuff going on themselves that they would never have enough time to even give me a second thought. And I invite you here to think about, what about yourself? Where are you feeling social anxiety? Where are you feeling any type of anxiety or worry about what other people are saying about you or might say about you? It's a natural reaction of doing something different, so congratulations. But you have to remember this. They really don't care that much about you at all. And I love this point here. They would be 1,000 times more concerned about a slight headache of their own than they would be of the news of your death or mine. Very interesting. So keep that in mind. They're too busy for you. The next point that we have here is leisure misery. George Bernard Shaw was right. He summed it all up when he said, "The secret of being miserable is to have the leisure to bother about whether you are happy or not." So don't bother yourself to think about it. Spit on your hands and get busy. Your blood will start circulating, your mind will start ticking, and pretty soon, this whole positive upsurge of your life and your body will drive worry from your mind. Get busy and keep busy. It's the cheapest kind of medicine there is on this earth, and it's one of the best. Do you have too much time to think? To me, this is good advice for some and bad advice for others. So, if you're the type of person who never takes the time to reflect, this is what I would suggest. First, take some time. Reflect back. Why am I doing this? What am I trying to accomplish? How might I accomplish this more efficiently? But if you're the type of person who tends to do too much thinking, Dale and George have it right. Spit on your hands and get back to work. I want to thank you for being with me here today in this mind map. Really looking forward to bringing some of the really exciting books that I have coming up to you guys. And please take some time, share this mind map with your friends, share this mind map with some of the people that you know need to stop worrying and start living. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one.